What if humanity's earliest civilization knew something that modern history has forgotten? Thousands of years ago, long before telescopes, computers, or modern science existed, an ancient people carved extraordinary stories onto clay tablets. These texts described powerful beings who descended from the heavens, shared advanced knowledge, and helped shape civilization itself. Were these simply myths created to explain a mysterious world? Or could they contain fragments of real events hidden beneath layers of symbolism and time? Even more intriguing, many of the achievements credited to these heavenly beings seem to mirror the astonishing accomplishments of the Sumerians themselves. A civilization that suddenly appeared with advanced mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and writing. Were the Anunnaki, gods, legends, or something far more mysterious? The deeper the evidence is examined, the stranger the story becomes. To understand the mystery of the Anunnaki, it is essential to first understand the civilization that recorded their stories. More than 6,000 years ago, in the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a remarkable civilization emerged. Known today as Sumer, this society flourished in what is now modern Iraq and became one of the earliest urban civilizations in human history. The environment was far from ideal. The region was hot, unpredictable, and often difficult to farm. Yet the Sumerians transformed this challenging landscape through sophisticated irrigation systems that redirected river water across vast stretches of land. Areas once considered barren became productive agricultural centers capable of supporting large populations. As food production increased, cities began to grow. Places such as Uruk, and Eridu became thriving centers of trade, religion, and administration. Uruk, in particular, is often considered one of the world's first true cities, housing tens of thousands of inhabitants at a time when most humans still lived in small settlements. But the Sumerians accomplished far more than urban development. Around 3200 BC, they created one of humanity's earliest writing systems, known as cuneiform. By pressing wedge-shaped symbols into soft clay tablets, they developed a method of recording information that forever changed human civilization. Laws, trade records, religious beliefs, historical events, and astronomical observations could now be preserved and passed to future generations. For the first time in history, humanity was not simply remembering its past. It was writing it down. Among the thousands of clay tablets discovered across ancient Mesopotamia, one group of divine figures appears again and again: the Anunnaki. In Sumerian belief, the Anunnaki were not described as ordinary spirits or minor deities. They belonged to the highest level of the divine order and were closely connected to kingship, law, nature, and the fate of humanity. Their exact identity remains a subject of debate. Some scholars interpret the name Anunnaki as referring to the descendants or followers of Anu, the supreme god of the heavens. Other translations connect the term with divine authority or royal lineage. Popular modern interpretations often claim that the word means those who came from the heavens, but this translation is not universally accepted by specialists in ancient languages. What is certain is that the Anunnaki played an important role in Mesopotamian religion. At the center of this divine family stood Anu, the god of the sky and one of the highest authorities in the Sumerian pantheon. He was often portrayed as distant and powerful, ruling from the heavens while other gods managed events on earth. One of those gods was Enlil. Associated with wind, storms, and political authority, Enlil was considered a force capable of both creating order and causing destruction. In several Mesopotamian myths, he became frustrated with humanity and supported the decision to send a devastating flood. Another major figure was Enki, the god of water, wisdom, craftsmanship, and knowledge. Unlike Enlil, Enki was often portrayed as a protector of human beings. He helped humanity survive disasters and was connected with agriculture, irrigation, construction, and the organization of civilization. This contrast created one of the most powerful themes in Mesopotamian mythology. Enlil represented control, punishment, and divine authority. Enki represented intelligence, compassion, and survival. In ancient flood stories, such as the Epic of Atrahasis, the gods decided that humanity had become too numerous and disruptive. A catastrophic flood was planned, but one god secretly warned a chosen man and gave him instructions to survive. The similarities between this story and later flood traditions, including the biblical story of Noah, have attracted the attention of historians for generations, yet the tablets do not present the Anunnaki as perfect or emotionless beings. They argue, compete, become jealous, show mercy, and sometimes regret their decisions. Their personalities are surprisingly human. This raises an important question. Were the Anunnaki simply symbolic gods created to explain natural forces and social order? Or did these stories preserve distant memories of powerful rulers, teachers, or unfamiliar cultures whose abilities seem supernatural to the people of ancient Sumer? Long before the rise of Greece, Rome, or Egypt's later dynasties, the Sumerians achieved something that still astonishes historians today. They built one of the world's first complex civilizations, seemingly in a relatively short period of time. Their cities were organized, their laws were structured, and their understanding of mathematics and astronomy was unlike anything seen before. One of the greatest examples of their ingenuity was mathematics. The Sumerians developed a numerical system based on the number 60, known as the sexagesimal system. Unlike the decimal system used in most of the world today, this approach made complex calculations easier and more flexible. Thousands of years later, humanity still uses remnants of this ancient system every day. 60 seconds make a minute, 60 minutes make an hour. A circle contains 360 degrees. These are living remnants of Sumerian mathematics. Their engineering achievements were equally remarkable. Massive irrigation networks transformed difficult terrain into productive farmland. Complex canals directed water across great distances, supporting growing populations and allowing cities to flourish in an otherwise harsh environment. The Sumerians also constructed enormous step temples known as ziggurats. These structures dominated city skylines and required advanced planning, logistics, and architectural knowledge. Millions of mud bricks were shaped, transported, and assembled into towering monuments that remained standing for centuries. Yet perhaps the most fascinating area of Sumerian achievement was astronomy. Night after night, Sumerian observers studied the skies above Mesopotamia. They tracked the movements of celestial objects with extraordinary dedication. Over generations, detailed records were preserved on clay tablets, creating one of the earliest known astronomical traditions in human history. The Sumerians recognized that certain bright objects moved differently from ordinary stars. Today, these objects are known as planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. They carefully recorded their movements and attempted to understand their patterns. Among the most impressive examples is their observation of Venus. Ancient records demonstrate that Mesopotamian astronomers recognized Venus as both the morning star and the evening star, understanding that both appearances represented the same celestial body. This insight may sound simple today, but for an ancient civilization without telescopes, it was a remarkable achievement. As centuries passed, these observations became increasingly detailed, forming the foundation for later astronomical traditions throughout the ancient world. The more historians study these records, the more they appreciate the patience, intelligence, and dedication required to produce them. Yet admiration quickly gives way to curiosity. How did a civilization thousands of years removed from modern science acquire such an advanced understanding of mathematics, engineering, and astronomy? That question lies at the very heart of the Anunnaki mystery. If there is one area of Sumerian achievement that continues to generate debate, it is astronomy. Modern observers often underestimate how difficult astronomical observation was in the ancient world. There were no telescopes, no satellites, no computers capable of tracking planetary motion. There were only human eyes, careful records, and generations of patient observation. Yet despite these limitations, Mesopotamian astronomers produced surprisingly accurate records of celestial events. Clay tablets reveal observations of planetary cycles, lunar phases, eclipses, seasonal changes, and recurring astronomical patterns. Over centuries, these observations allowed priests and scholars to develop calendars that regulated agriculture, religious festivals, and government activities. Among the most famous artifacts connected to this tradition is the Venus tablet of Ammisaduqa, dating to approximately 1600 BC, and rooted in earlier Mesopotamian astronomical traditions. This document records the appearances and disappearances of Venus over extended periods. Modern researchers have studied the tablet extensively because it demonstrates a level of astronomical observation that was exceptional for its time. The existence of such records raises an intriguing question. How were ancient observers able to achieve such accuracy? The mainstream explanation is straightforward. Generation after generation, skilled observers watched the skies, recorded what they saw, corrected mistakes, and gradually refined their knowledge. Many historians consider this explanation sufficient. But others argue that some aspects predicting recurring celestial cycles with consistency over centuries is another. Such achievements required discipline, organization, and an intellectual tradition that few ancient societies possessed. This has led some researchers to explore alternative possibilities. Perhaps the Sumerians inherited part of their knowledge from earlier cultures. Perhaps information traveled through trade networks connecting distant regions. Or perhaps there are chapters of human history that remain undiscovered beneath layers of time and lost civilizations. The mystery deepens when mythology enters the discussion. Several Sumerian traditions describe divine beings sharing knowledge with humanity. These stories speak of instruction, guidance, and the transfer of skills that helped civilization grow. Mainstream scholars view such accounts as symbolic explanations for cultural development. Yet supporters of alternative interpretations point to an interesting coincidence. And governance are precisely the fields in which Sumer excelled. Coincidence? Symbolism? Or a distant memory transformed into mythology over thousands of years? The answer remains one of history's most fascinating unanswered questions. For decades, historians believed they had a relatively clear timeline for the rise of civilization. According to the traditional view, complex societies emerged gradually after the agricultural revolution. Villages became towns, towns became cities, and eventually civilizations like Sumer appeared. Then came a discovery that challenged many assumptions. In southeastern Turkey stands an archaeological site known as Göbekli Tepe. Estimated to be more than 11,000 years old, the site predates Stonehenge by thousands of years, and was built long before historians believed humans possessed the organizational abilities necessary for large-scale construction. Massive stone pillars weighing several tons were carved with remarkable precision and arranged in sophisticated circular structures. The builders left behind no evidence of cities, metal tools, or advanced technology. Yet somehow, they created one of the most extraordinary monuments of the ancient world. The discovery shocked archaeologists. If people were capable of constructing such complex structures thousands of years earlier than expected, what else might humanity's distant past contain? This question has become central to many discussions about Sumerian origins. Some researchers suggest that knowledge may not always develop in a straight line. Civilizations rise, decline, disappear, and sometimes leave fragments of their achievements behind. Over centuries, surviving groups may inherit pieces of that knowledge without fully understanding its original source. Could something similar have happened before Sumer? Imagine a civilization whose achievements were largely erased by natural disasters, climate changes, migrations, or the passage of time. Only fragments of its traditions survive, passed down through stories, symbols, and practical knowledge. Generations later, those fragments might reappear in a new civilization. To some researchers, this possibility offers a potential explanation for the surprisingly advanced nature of early Sumerian culture. Of course, there is currently no direct evidence proving that a lost global civilization existed before Sumer. Mainstream archaeology remains cautious, emphasizing that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Nevertheless, discoveries like Göbekli Tepe serve as an important reminder. Human history is still incomplete. Every year, new excavations reveal sites, artifacts, and structures that challenge previous assumptions. Entire chapters of the ancient world remain buried beneath deserts, forests, mountains, and oceans. The deeper archaeologists dig, the more they realize that humanity's story may be far more complex than once believed. And if earlier cultures did influence Sumer, their legacy may still be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be recognized. No modern discussion of the Anunnaki would be complete without mentioning one of the most controversial figures associated with the subject, Zecharia Sitchin. During the 20th century, Sitchin published a series of books that dramatically transformed public interest in ancient Mesopotamia. His writings proposed a radical interpretation of Sumerian mythology. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki were not gods in a symbolic or religious sense. They were extraterrestrial visitors. He argued that these beings came from a distant world called Nibiru and arrived on Earth thousands of years ago. According to his theory, they shared advanced knowledge with humanity and played a direct role in shaping civilization. The idea captured the imagination of millions. It offered an explanation for ancient mysteries, technological achievements, and unexplained aspects of early human development. Books, documentaries, television programs, and internet discussions spread these theories around the world. However, the academic response was overwhelmingly critical. Most experts in Sumerian language, archaeology, and ancient history reject Sitchin's conclusions. Linguists have argued that many of his translations differ significantly from accepted interpretations of the original texts. According to mainstream scholarship, the tablets do not describe extraterrestrial visitors, advanced spacecraft, or a hidden planet returning periodically to the solar system. Instead, scholars view the Anunnaki as mythological and religious figures whose stories reflected the beliefs, values, and worldview of ancient Mesopotamian society. Yet despite this criticism, Sitchin's theories continue to attract attention. Why? Because they address a question that fascinates people across every generation. How did civilization begin? Whenever humanity encounters an ancient mystery that lacks a complete explanation, alternative theories naturally emerge. The Anunnaki became one of the most famous examples of this phenomenon. Even people who reject the extraterrestrial interpretation often admit that the underlying mysteries remain compelling. The sudden rise of Sumer, its advanced astronomy, its sophisticated mathematics, its detailed mythology, its enduring influence on later civilizations. These are genuine historical subjects worthy of investigation. The challenge lies in separating evidence from speculation. Doing so is not always easy, especially when ancient texts, incomplete archaeological records, and human imagination become intertwined. The result is a debate that has continued for decades and shows no sign of disappearing anytime soon. After centuries of study and decades of modern archaeological research, historians have developed a well-supported explanation for the rise of Sumerian civilization. According to the mainstream view, the achievements of the Sumerians were the result of human ingenuity, environmental adaptation, and the accumulation of knowledge over many generations. The fertile river valleys of Mesopotamia provided the resources necessary for agriculture. Growing populations encouraged innovation. Trade networks connected distant communities. Ideas spread, evolved, and improved over time. From this perspective, the development of writing, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and government was not the result of divine intervention or extraterrestrial contact. It was the result of thousands of years of human effort. Many scholars point out that similar patterns can be observed throughout history. Civilizations often advance through gradual improvements rather than sudden breakthroughs. One generation builds upon the discoveries of the previous one. This explanation is supported by substantial archaeological evidence. Yet despite these strengths, not every question has been answered. For example, historians still debate exactly how certain aspects of Sumerian astronomy became so sophisticated. While careful observation explains much of their success, some records demonstrate levels of consistency and precision that continue to impress modern researchers. Questions also remain regarding the speed of Sumer's development. Civilizations rarely appear overnight. Yet compared to many earlier societies, Sumer seems to emerge with an impressive collection of technologies, social systems, and intellectual achievements already in place. This does not mean the civilization appeared suddenly. Archaeologists have identified earlier cultures that contributed to its development. However, the process remains more complex than many people realize. Another challenge involves the interpretation of mythology. Ancient myths are rarely straightforward historical documents. They combine symbolism, religious beliefs, cultural memory, and sometimes real events. Determining where mythology ends and history begins can be extraordinarily difficult. Throughout history, myths have occasionally preserved memories of genuine catastrophes, migrations, and social changes long after the original events were forgotten. Could some elements of the Anunnaki stories contain similar historical memories? Most scholars remain cautious, but they also acknowledge that ancient myths should not be dismissed entirely. They often provide valuable insights into how ancient societies understood their world and remembered their past. In the end, the debate is not necessarily between believers and skeptics. It is between different interpretations of incomplete evidence. The tablets are real. The cities are real. The achievements are real. The mystery lies in how all of these pieces fit together. One of the greatest challenges in understanding the Anunnaki comes from the tablets themselves. Thousands of clay tablets have been recovered from ancient Mesopotamian sites, but many survive only in fragments. Some are damaged by time, others are incomplete. Entire sections of important texts may be missing forever. Imagine attempting to reconstruct a complex novel after finding only scattered pages buried beneath thousands of years of debris. That is often the reality faced by archaeologists and historians. Translation creates another layer of difficulty. Unlike modern languages, Sumerian has not been spoken for thousands of years. Scholars must reconstruct meanings through comparison, context, and careful analysis of surviving texts. A single word can sometimes have multiple interpretations depending on its usage. A phrase describing a divine being descending from heaven might be understood literally, symbolically, politically, or religiously depending on the context. This uncertainty leaves room for disagreement. Some researchers focus on symbolic interpretations. Others search for historical events hidden beneath mythological language. Still others believe the truth may involve a combination of both. The challenge becomes even greater when later civilizations enter the picture. Many Sumerian myths were adopted, adapted, and rewritten by the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. Over centuries, stories evolved, details changed, and different cultural influences became intertwined. As a result, tracing an original story back to its earliest form can be extremely difficult. Despite these obstacles, the tablets remain one of humanity's greatest archaeological treasures. They allow modern researchers to hear voices from a world that existed more than 5,000 years ago. They reveal concerns about leadership, survival, morality, disaster, and humanity's place in the universe. Most importantly, they remind us that ancient people were not primitive thinkers struggling to understand a simple world. They were intelligent observers attempting to answer the same profound questions that humans continue to ask today. Where did we come from? Who taught us? Why are we here? And could there be chapters of our history that have yet to be discovered? Those questions continue to drive the search for answers hidden within the ancient tablets of Mesopotamia. The story of the Anunnaki remains one of the most fascinating mysteries in human history. On one side, there is solid archaeological evidence revealing the extraordinary accomplishments of the Sumerians. Their writing system, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and city-building achievements helped lay the foundations of civilization itself. On the other side, there are the ancient stories of powerful beings connected to the heavens. Stories of wisdom passed down to humanity. Stories that continue to inspire debate among historians, archaeologists, researchers, and curious minds around the world. Were the Anunnaki simply mythological gods created to explain the forces of nature and the origins of civilization? Were they symbolic representations of forgotten historical events? Could they reflect distant memories of interactions with advanced cultures whose identities have been lost to time? Or is the truth something entirely different, something that has yet to be uncovered beneath the sands of the ancient world? At this moment, no one can say with certainty. What makes the mystery so compelling is not that we have all the answers. It is that we do not. Every new excavation, every newly translated tablet, and every archaeological discovery adds up another piece to a puzzle that remains incomplete. And history has repeatedly shown that some of humanity's greatest discoveries begin with questions that seem impossible to answer. Perhaps the Anunnaki were gods. Perhaps they were legends. Or perhaps they were something that modern history has not fully understood yet. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is clear. The ancient world still holds secrets waiting to be revealed. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed exploring one of history's greatest mysteries, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join the journey ahead. There are still countless lost civilizations, forgotten discoveries, and unanswered questions waiting to be explored. Because the deeper humanity looks into its past, the more extraordinary that past becomes.